With the 2014 release of Photoshop CC, Smart Guides are smarter than ever before. First of all, to increase awareness of their functionality, they're now turned on by default. Let's take a look at how they can help us. The first thing I'll do is I'll select the Move tool and then turn on Auto Select and change this to Layer. That way, when I click on this image right here, it will automatically be selected in my Layers panel. Now, as I start dragging it to the right, you'll notice that I get some magenta guides. Those are the Smart Guides, and they're telling me that I have aligned these horizontally. Now, if I hold down the Command key and I reposition my cursor outside of the targeted layer, you'll notice that I get these new reference measurement guides, which will tell me the distance from the bounding box of my selected layer to the edges of the canvas. But what I really want to know is I want to know the distance between the two layers. So when I position my cursor on top of another layer, while I'm still holding down the Command or the Control key, I now get the distance between those layers. Now we can see that it's actually reading out the distance in inches, and I want to change that to pixels. The fastest way to do this would be to use Command R or Control R to show our rulers, and then right mouse click in the ruler units and change them to pixels. Now if I hover my cursor over the first layer, but I don't want to click to select the layer, I'm just hovering my cursor over it and I hold down the Command key, now I can see the distance in pixels. Well, I don't want 152 pixels, so certainly I could click and drag to make it smaller, but if I keep that Command key or the Control key down and I hover it on top of the other layer, I can use my arrow keys to actually nudge the active layer until I get the exact distance that I want. Excellent. Now I'm going to click on top of this layer here, the two birds layer. That will automatically select it since I have the Move tool with the Auto Select on. And I'll click and drag in order to reposition it. And you can tell as I move it over to the right, not only can I tell that it's in alignment, but when I reach an equal distance, Photoshop's going to snap to that distance and show me that unit of measurement, the 50 pixels, in between each one of these layers. Now let's toggle these off for a moment, and I'm going to change to the Shape tool. So I'll tap the U key and then click and drag out a shape. I'm dragging out a circle so that I can show you that when you have a layer that isn't square, we're actually going to create the measurements from the document bounds. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. I'll use Command J or Control J, and then tap V to get my Move tool and scoot this over. And you can see now, if I hold down the Command or the Control key and hover on top of the active layer, I get the bounding box. Outside of the layer, I get the reference measurement guides. And on top of another layer, I will get the distance between those. Now, this will also work if you've got two shapes on the same layer. So I'll select the Shape tool and then hold down the Command and Option or Control and Alt and click and drag a duplicate shape, although you can see on my Layers panel it's actually duplicating it on the same layer, and I'll just drag that out until it snaps so that now I know that there's equal distance between those three shapes. Now the one confusing point that I ran into was at this point I would hold down the Command key and position my cursor outside of that shape, but nothing would happen, and that's because I don't have the right tool selected. When you're using Smart Guides, you either want to have the Move tool selected, so you could tap the V key and then we get all of our measurements, or you could tap the A key to give us our direct selection tool and hold down the Command key, and then you get all of those Smart Guides measurements. Now, two last things before we wrap up. First of all, if you don't want your Smart Guides to be pink, all you need to do is go into the Photoshop Preferences, which would be under the Photoshop menu on Mac or the Edit menu on Windows, and then choose Guide, Grids, and Slices, and you can change the color for the Smart Guides either by using the drop-down menu or by clicking in the color swatch. I'll go ahead and set these to light gray. Click OK, and then if they ever become too distracting when you're working with your layers, you can always toggle them on and off by going under the View menu, under Show, and then Smart Guides. For now, I'll go ahead and keep them on. So there we go. I'm sure that you can see how the Smart Guide's ability to preview distances between objects as well as positioning within a document can make aligning and distributing multiple layers and shapes faster than ever before.